Hi, everyone. Happy day before Thanksgiving. And thank you for checking out our talk today, even though it is the holiday week. And if you're subscribed to Optionality, of course, you'll get it in your inbox to enjoy later. My name is Elisa Camahort Page, and I am the co-founder of the aforementioned Optionality. And this month of November our theme has been a wisdom exchange to take all these great community members who are experts in so many different topics. There are partners, there are premium members, there are people in our orbit, and just share generously of the wisdom that they bring to the table. And today, I'm really excited to be joined by three people who are going to share, I think, some really practical, actionable tips on how to use three different platforms for building your platform in the world. And they're going to tell you really how they get there, a little bit how the vegan sausage is made, a little bit behind the scenes. We're gonna dig in a little deep. So please, I want to welcome, of course, Jory Desjardins, my co-founder of Optionality here. Ryan Tate is our program coordinator, and he helps us with a lot of things, but particularly taking all these great videos we make and turning them into different forms of content that we use in different places. And so Jory's going to be talking about LinkedIn today, and Ryan is going to be talking about YouTube. And I'm going to start with Alyssa Zander, who I met in March, my first time ever going to Alt Summit, which has been around for a really long time. So I can't believe it was my first time. And I saw Alyssa give a presentation on how she has made her Substack a success. And of course, I was really interested in that because Optionality is a Substack. I have a personal Substack. And I was saying before we came on air that I have been to and produced I don't know how many conferences and so much programming around social media. And I just thought Alyssa's was one of the best I had seen. It was really practical, but also she's one of the few who I felt really gave us a look at what goes on when you're trying to figure out you're doing all the right things and it's not working. And she just walked us through how she decided it wasn't working, what she did to try and figure out what she decided to do that made it better. And so many people will show you how they did the 5 things they did to make it awesome, but it's like magic. They don't let you in. It's like they're magicians hiding the tricks, right? And Alyssa was not like that. And I was really blown away. And so I just emailed her out of the blue, really, just a couple of weeks ago and said, I love you. Will you come share this with the Optionality community? And I've subscribed to her Substack, which is Codependency Alchemy, but I'm sure we'll hear all about that. I wanted to start with a bit of a framing question for each of you. And when I first was talking to particularly brands and people who were not, I would say, internet natives, netizens, about how to think about all the different social platforms where they might engage. I used to try and say, look, Facebook is like someone's living room. Twitter is like a cocktail party. I try to come up with this metaphor for them so that they could try to understand that the way people are when they visit these different platforms can be very different. And what they go to LinkedIn for, they may not want to see that same thing when they go to Instagram. They may not want to consume content in the same way when they're over in another platform. So I asked all of my fine speakers before we came in to think about what would be their metaphor of what is the mindset people are in. And I'm going to start with Alyssa. And I think it's a harder question than maybe for the others because there are so many different kinds of Substack stacks.
Mm-hmm.
So when I threw that question at you, what did you think of first?
Yeah, I even have it on my Substack about page that all my social media platforms outside of Substack are like invitations. My Substack is like I'm welcoming you into my home, like literally my couch. Half of my podcast videos that I host on Substack are me on my couch. So I like to think of my Substack as I am sitting across from you, like you are my friend. We are in this room and sharing this space together. It's very, very personal and vulnerable. And you're right. I think there's so many different Substacks out there in the world, which is great. But I think for my Substack, it's you're coming into my home.
Okay, so you have And remind everyone, or tell everyone for the first
Mhm.
time maybe, what is the topic of your Substack?
Yeah, so my Substack is called Codependency Alchemy, and it is a place where we have built a community to do shadow work and inner child healing to heal core generational patterns and trauma. So I created Codependency Alchemy from my own need and desire for a space to talk about the uncomfortable patterns that I find myself in both my romantic relationship, but also my relationship with my family. And when I began healing from codependency in my life, what ends up happening when you become aware of it is a lot of guilt and a lot of shame. And it can be a really it can be a dangerous path to go down, and it can feel like a vortex. And I promised myself when I kind of was on the other side of it a little bit that I would create a space that I wish I had.
Mm,
And that's what my Substack has turned into. I tried thousands of iterations before Substack, but Substack ended up being the one that felt like it could stick and that it could withstand a lot of growth and a lot more people in that space.
And to be clear, I feel like with the topic you have, you didn't have to go for it feeling like your home. You could have had it
Mhm.
feel like a group therapy or a therapist's
Mhm.
office, or you could have had it. So I assume that that drove decision making, like having that image around you of what you were hosting, where you were hosting people,
Mhm.
kind of affects what kind of content you make and the decisions you make around how to particularly share and promote it. Like that
Right.
tension of promotion versus, oh, you're in a safe space.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a writer at heart. And so Substack felt like a beautiful opportunity for me to one, like hone that and like have a place for it to live because I was writing all these emails, right? These newsletters that went out to my email list and then they just lived and died in people's inboxes, but I was really pouring my heart out and sharing some vulnerable stuff that I was getting tons of feedback was really supporting people on their journey. And so I think Substack offers a great opportunity for writers or people who are helping others move through tricky things because they can send it to their friends, right? Or they can send it to their partner or they can send it to their family where they're like, hey, this is helping me understand why we do what we do a little bit more.
Mm. And just before I move on, like when you got onto Substack, did you find they had a lot of information about how to make the best Substack? Did you find
Oh
their
my
best
God.
practices to be useful?
I felt like it was like no man's land. Like
Ah,
like no one knew even how to operate it. It was still so new.
yeah,
And well, I say that, but it had actually been around for years when even when I joined in summer of 2023. But almost nobody had heard about it when I said, "Oh, I have a Substack. What is that? What is
yeah,
that?" Like that would be the first question I got asked, where now I say I have a Substack and people are saying, "Oh, what's it called?"
yeah.
Like now there's a different response than there was before. So there wasn't there's tons of content on it now, but when I joined, I didn't feel like anyone was describing or explaining how to create a successful Substack, which is why I wanted to talk about it at Alt Summit. And it's why I also created a Substack mastermind and I
Mm,
do a webinar every once in a while as well because there's so much that if you don't have someone walking you through it, you would completely miss it.
yeah. We're going to come back to you, but I want to just take my first question to Ryan now and say, so when you think, the thing about you, Ryan, is I know you were on YouTube. I used to always talk about how you taught yourself to play piano via YouTube, how you were like a YouTube user just for real and native YouTube user. So when you started having to create content for a business, for, a community like Optionality, how do you think of it when you're putting it together? What does it compare to in real life?
That's a good question. So usually when I'm thinking about the content that I'm creating for YouTube, I kind of have to take the emotional attachment of creating it out and be like, all right, this is like a giant void. It's a whole bunch of different people that can access your content. You don't really have a way to really direct people um, towards like, I would say it's just a really big void. Like you're kind of screaming into the void and hoping something comes back. Because I think right now in the early stages of creating the content, I haven't been able to create so much community per se, but it's a good way to get content out to people that otherwise would have no idea it exists in the first place. So
Would
using
you say that,
YouTube,
would you say that right now you're more thinking about trying to create for the algorithm than for a community? Because we're still at that early stage on YouTube. We just launched our YouTube, by the way, like a few months ago, and we had 0 views. I mean, I was just putting stuff there and it would get 5 views or no views. And then he started coming in and really focusing on the YouTube shorts, which we're going to get into. And now we regularly are getting like hundreds of views and thousands of views on individual YouTube shorts. So right now, is that why you say take the emotion out of it? Because you're really designing for a machine?
yeah, I'm designing for the algorithm because that seems to be the main thing driving all social media nowadays. Is whether it's algorithmically correct, whether the audience retention is a good marker of that, which I've noticed as well. But basically, as long as I continue to test the algorithm with the content, I think eventually it will naturally navigate towards people that are more interested in the content, which in turn will allow us to build a community. But in these early stages, it's kind of difficult to build a community without an actual community on YouTube. So
Right.
pushing the algorithm and basically trying different variables when I'm posting has been really important and really key to the success of the platform so far.
Does YouTube itself, are there sources that are helping you? Is it really very much about testing and observation and repeating? Or, I just sometimes feel like these platforms don't really want to help you be successful in any other way but paid advertising, right? Making you pay to boost. So is that true on YouTube? Do they have any best practices that you researched?
I would say that most of the best practices that I found are other YouTube creators, posting, oh, the YouTube algorithm does this, oh, the YouTube algorithm does that. But the real best practice is to just continue posting content and isolating variables on whether or not your content is performing well compared to content that's not. So
Yeah.
I remember I would say a month ago or a couple months ago, the content dropped and I started to wonder, well, why is that? And it all came down to basically what was being talked about at the time, and say the captions I was using, the hashtags I was using, the descriptions I was using, length of the video. That's all stuff that you can isolate as variables and then play around with and twist to basically create more content in a different way, which will restart the algorithm in your favor again.
I'll ask you one more question before I go to Jory. I haven't actually noticed if you've done this. Have you ever taken basically the same click and posted it again with different variables? Or are you just saying you're playing, we have a million clips, so you're just, but have you ever taken the same clips and posted them again, changing small things?
No, I don't usually tend to post the same clip. And I mean, I could definitely start testing that out. I feel like the joy that I get is from creating new content and pretty much putting it into a bracket of okay, our AI content does really well, but then if we're posting something about something emotional, I've noticed that doesn't do so well.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
We're going to come back to that because, trying to build a community, our community is predominantly women, not all women, but predominantly, just like Blog Her was. And, it's interesting if YouTube is downgrading content that's more emotional. Alyssa, are you on YouTube at all?
Yes and no. I have dabbled in YouTube just because I create so much content for Instagram and TikTok that it's easy for me just to translate it over to YouTube Shorts. And I have done that. It's like another thing on my to-do list.
Yeah.
And so it's fallen by the wayside.
I'd just be curious what you see, because I would assume that a lot of your content is pretty emotional in nature. dealing with your subject matter. So I was just curious, but I'm going to head over to Jory now.
For my metaphor?
What?
For my metaphor?
Yes. Yeah. What's your metaphor, Jory?
Okay. So LinkedIn, if your resume is like the first 30 minutes of The Wizard of Oz, LinkedIn is Munchkin Land. When Dorothy lands, she opens it up and it's Technicolor. I feel like it's your resume with so much more context and so much more that you can share beyond your this many years here. You get to share thought leadership, you get to share wins, you get to share recency, you can actually like update it. There's, I mean, from a go to market perspective, right? I work with a lot of companies on their go to market. From that perspective, it's like a dreamland because people can see not just what you've done, but how you think if you do it right. So I think of it as a Technicolor version of your resume.
Okay. And how do you and I have had many a conversation about the LinkedIn algorithm.
Oh, yes.
And when I say that some of these platforms seem to want to push you to boost things, I'm thinking about LinkedIn a lot. And so what kind are you figuring out best practices about what to post, when to post, how to post? You're a top voice, which we're going to get into later, but I'm like, you even have access, I think, to some resources as a top voice that maybe I don't have. So do you like, where are you finding out your best practices? Are you like experimenting like Ryan? Are there people are they mostly other LinkedIn users or saying, here's how I crack the code?
So I will qualify this. I am not, there are some people who spend a good amount of time because it's so tied to their business. For me, it is, I enjoy the platform. I enjoy posting, but it is not where I, choose to spend the bulk of my time. And I don't try to surface every single angle. I know that when we first launched optionality, it was frustrating for us because we did have this big boost. And then I realized, we started to see some of that winnow. I could send something out and it would go to maybe 1% of my followers, right? Which was frustrating. And, but not surprising because I've worked with many companies that have built LinkedIn presences, and I've had to gamify and figure out a lot of stuff. And if there's one thing that I do know, it's that in the algo, everyone talks about the algo. I'm not going to tell you word for word what you should do. Just know this much, that the algo does create a profile for you. And if you are posting against type, it doesn't give you as much love. And if you're posting off of the platform, it doesn't give you much love. So I also think that the algo figures out, and I try to validate this with LinkedIn, although they would not validate this with me. But I do think that if you are posting, as we started to continue to post under optionality, it figures out, oh, this is an entity or a business. And then I noticed that my traffic winnowed, like my personal my personal post did much better than the optionality posts. And I think it's because the rationale is, well, then pay for that sort of access to an audience. So I do think there is something in there that does optimize for paid, and it does understand. We also have a business page on the platform.
Yeah.
And I do notice over time we get little like, hey, you could also boost this. You could do that. You could do that. And we have boosted, right? And we have seen more performance. So it gives you little tastes of performance to help incent that behavior.
To keep you stuck. Okay. So now we're going to start digging into more nitty gritty, and I'm going to start with Alyssa. So as I said, what I really loved about your presentation was you talked about your beginning, gosh, I'm doing everything, but things aren't happening the way I want them to, and your thought process to change over what you did and to really double down on what worked and drop what didn't. So I know we don't have, like, you gave a whole hour presentation on this whole thing, and we don't have that much time, but can you walk us through a little bit what you hoped for, what you didn't see, and what you did then?
Yeah. So when I started my Substack, it was summer of 2023, and my intention was I'm going to move my membership, which had about 20 people in it, from this platform, which wasn't really a platform, it was like Telegram, over to Substack. And then I'm going to start posting on Substack regularly, like 2 times a week, 1 to 2 times a week, so that I wasn't ghosting my newsletter, right? Because at that point I had gotten quite a lot of email subscribers, but I wasn't emailing them or connecting with them on a regular basis. So Substack was kind of my goal to do two things, right? Connect with my audience that I had built off of social media, while also simultaneously hosting a membership on Substack. So 6 months in, I'm doing that, and I basically just have negative 11% growth. Like, people were just unsubscribing. And
So,
it,
and were these people that you felt like you knew? Was each time it happened a little pang to your heart?
you can't look. I can't look. I can't look to see who unsubscribes.
Oh, you're
That's none of
strong.
my business. That's none of my business.
Oh,
But you know, unsubscribes in general, right, are kind of a little bit of a ping to your heart. Well, and especially when that's all I'm getting. So it was like starting at this number and just seeing it every single email go down and down and down. And after 6 months, so this is December 2023, I was like, clearly what I'm doing is not working. Like, at what point am I going to admit to myself that this, how I'm doing it, is not working? And so that's when I started just looking at every single one of my Substack posts and researching it. What am I talking about? How am I talking about it? What am I complaining about? I'm complaining about nobody subscribing. I'm complaining about nobody upgrading. I'm complaining about, nobody liking or sharing the posts. And so I'm looking through all these posts, and it's like, oh, I'm not asking anyone to subscribe. Oh, I'm not asking anyone to upgrade. Oh, I'm not sharing any of these things to social media. So I realized that all these things that I wanted these posts to do, I wasn't even doing, or I wasn't even inviting for the thing to take place. So in January, I told myself, okay, I'm going to write all of these posts over, but better. I'm going to have a better title that is more, I mean, not clickbait, right? But like more optimized for Substack, where it's like, oh, I'm reading an article, I'm going to get some information, right? Like, what is shadow work? What is inner child healing? How to do it? Like, more how-tos, more guides, more scripts, things that my community wanted. And I lowered the pricing, and I did not post anything without adding subscribe on there. Like, some place to subscribe, some place to upgrade. So I
it's
basically
funny
went
because
back.
now on Substack, if you write a newsletter and you don't include a subscribe button, it prompts you and says, "Oh,
Yeah,
you're
it'll be
about
like,
to
you
publish.
sure?
You sure you want to do that?"
Yeah.
So you were
Mhm.
earlier days before they figured out that people
Mhm.
really need to do that.
Yeah.
So you took the same content and repurposed it. Am I hearing that right?
More or less. Like, I basically archived a lot of those posts, but took the ones that I really liked or that I was really proud of myself for writing, and I asked myself, like, how can I take this story that I told and use it in a way that can help people understand a concept that I want them to wrap their head around.
Okay,
I'm
so
taking notes, by the way.
yeah. Oh,
Oh,
I
we
know.
should be repurposing content constantly. Like, every Substack post, which is what you saw in my presentation, right?
Right.
Every Substack post is an Instagram carousel, is a reel, is a podcast episode.
Yes.
It's like
We had
all
a
of the
gross
things.
term for that when I was in media, we called it chopping the chicken. And
Oh,
Yeah.
you got to chop it 10 ways. And the other
Mhm.
thing that I learned was, and I used to say, oh, I've already said that. I've already released that. No, you cannot
Say
repeat
it again.
yourself too much.
Say it again. I've been saying the same thing for 3 years. If you were to go through and listen or read my posts on my Instagram or on my Substack, I'm saying the same thing over and over and over again. Sometimes quite literally the same post, I will just repost it. I will archive the old one. I will make a new one. I'll update it. I'll reuse it. I'll use a different title. I'll try to optimize it and just like what went well, what didn't go well.
wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
realistically, how often people can't read every email they get, even when they
No.
want to read it. So chances are there are a lot of people who will like it the second time or the third time or
Right. And
yeah.
what I tell people is like I have over 20,000 subscribers on Substack now. I have never ever ever in my life gotten a message from someone or an email from someone or a comment from someone saying you already posted this.
I used to know this about places like Twitter and, Insta that because I used to know, I just never thought of you're blowing my mind because I used to know I could look at Twitter and see that 0.2% of my followers saw any one tweet.
Mhm.
And it's the same. It's not better on Instagram. It's not better on LinkedIn. Oh my God, the views I get on LinkedIn versus my followers and contacts, it's like a less than 1% see. So I
Yeah.
used to know you can share the same tweet. You can say the same, you can promote the same things. Like no one's going to get sick of it because they don't even, it's true on Facebook too. It's true. I never thought of Substack in the same way. So you're kind of like
Mhm.
blowing my mind right now. Were there any other major changes that you did to how you shared your content or how you
Yeah.
talked about how you're kind of re-optimizing your content. How about how
Mhm.
you shared your content and how you
Mhm.
tried to, I mean, you're making a concerted effort to grow and
Mhm.
optimizing the content is part of that. What's
Mhm.
another part of that?
Yeah, another part is that I use social media to grow my subscribers. So in the next 6 months, right, summer 2023 to December 2023, I lost 11%. January 2024 to June 2024, my list more than doubled in that time. Like I went from 4,000, the number is 4,210 to 8,607. And the biggest thing that I think that I did was I used social media. I started posting it on my Instagram stories. I started making carousels. What I did was I used Canva. I made my own template because Instagram doesn't want to see the Substack, logo. It's
No.
like it sees it and it'll throw it away. So I basically made my own version of that in Canva, and I would just copy the title, paste it on the front page of the Canva, copy the subtitle, paste it on the Canva template, and then copy the first sentence on the next slide for the carousel. I didn't change anything. I am telling you, I copy and pasted my Substack post onto a carousel, and then I wouldn't do the whole thing. I'd kind of just do maybe the first paragraph or 2 paragraphs depending on how long it was. And then on the last slide of the carousel, I would say if you want to read the rest of this post, just type read in the comments and I'll send it to you. And so then I started sending my Substack to people in the DMs.
There's actually a tool for that, right?
Yeah, I use ManyChat now, but I didn't when I started.
You would manually do it.
I manually I still sometimes do. I did this week. I said, "Hey, I'm dropping some real vulnerable stuff in my Substack this month. Make sure you're subscribed on my Instagram story." And I give a little button. Engagement buttons, I probably know more about Instagram than I know about Substack, to be honest.
Right.
But engagement on Instagram stories is a huge way that I've grown my Substack as well. And then they just tap the emoji button, and I did it this week. I individually sent each one of the people who tapped it my Substack.
Wow.
Mhm.
Can I ask Alyssa a quick question just
Yeah.
related to that? So I'm not a big Instagram user. So I'm wondering, is there a big audience of people who are looking to read about personal topics? I always thought of Instagram as, like quick bites, visual type
Mhm.
content? I'm just curious to know.
I mean, my audience is like so invested in my personal life. It's like, but like not in a bad way, you know, like it's, I story tell on my Instagram. My Instagram is my living, breathing journal. So is Substack. And so it's personal for me. I think
Mhm.
sometimes, yeah, there is like bite-sized things, but my stories are like one of the biggest converting pieces.
What's your Instagram handle?
It's my name, Alyssa, Alyssaa, and then my last name, Xander. You know, when your name's taken, you gotta like get creative. I added a couple extra A's in there in the
All
middle.
right. Okay, cool. So we may come back to you, and feel free to chime in, but I'm gonna head over to Ryan and talk about YouTube for a little bit. So the first thing you told us, Ryan, when we brought you on to help us with this, is that we gotta make YouTube Shorts. I was posting full videos, and our live videos will go automatically. So they were all like full videos and live videos and all of that. And I was not using YouTube Shorts at all, even though Substack, when you put a video on Substack, it gives you clips. But I just wasn't really thinking of YouTube Shorts as the place where I should play. So tell me, why did you think YouTube Shorts, or what did you know that made YouTube Shorts such an obvious, like you gotta get on this first?
Well, it definitely is the attention span of this generation that has been completely destroyed.
Okay.
That was my first thought. I was thinking like, okay, if I see a 53-minute video on YouTube, I'm not clicking on that. Like immediate thought. And what I've noticed is that a lot of times, even now, if I open up YouTube, it'll directly open me up into shorts.
Yeah.
So that was my first thing. The content game has changed. I blame TikTok personally. It just ruined everyone's brains, especially in my generation. It's like everyone's on TikTok. Nobody can keep an attention span for more than 30 seconds at this point. It's not looking too good. But there's a way to harness that and basically push shorter form content to build your audience in the long run. And it's more of like a discovery type thing, where they're more likely, if they're actually interested in your content, they're more likely to discover it on shorts and then transfer into longer form versions of the content. So that was my first idea when I got access to the YouTube channel, where it's like, all right, we have a few long form videos up here, and we also have a few long form shorts, which I was like, all right, that's probably not going to do too well. Let me see if I can cut it down.
Yeah,
And
because the clips from Substack are usually at least over a minute long. They're not 30 seconds. They're not 40 seconds.
yeah, so I would say an epiphany hit me when I first started the job, and that was I was taking some clips from a conversationality that you did with Miss Eunice Brownlee, and she was talking about something, and I'm watching this 45-second clip. It's going through, and the punchline is all the way at the end.
Ah,
And that's when it hit me like, if I heard this punchline in the beginning of the video, I would be much more interested in watching the entire video. So that's when it first came to me like, hey, I can just take this clip of her talking about the most important thing that happened, stick it in the front of the video to get people kind of engaged at first, and then lead through with context. So and almost in a way, it's like I started with full clips, finding that key phrase or that key word that'll get viewers invested, and then shorten it down to, which I think now I have like a set time limit. I think I try not to go over 17 seconds, 20 seconds. I mean, we're doing like 10 to 15 regular seconds of content,
wow.
and that's it. And we're
I
cutting
thought
this
that
to
was, yeah, that was such an interesting. I remember when you told me that, and I thought, that's a very human thing that we explain ahead. We like set the context and then deliver. It's like, even if you're telling a joke, there's the context and the story, and then boom, like you said, the punchline. But in fact, to grab someone's attention in less than 3 seconds, you got to start with the punchline. I thought that was something I just had never thought of, but it rang so true once you said it, that, oh, human communication is not designed. The way we speak is not designed for the way people consume on YouTube. That is what struck me about that. So how do you decide when you need to change? You just mentioned before that you notice things stopped doing as well. Like, what are you looking for to be like, I need to look at this. I need to analyze this. I need to play around more. Are you talking about a 50% drop in views? Are you talking about that out of every 8 idiot? Because you're posting videos now like every other day, sometimes every day. And like, is it that, it used to be that, 50% of videos would get over 1,000 views. Now only 20% of, like, what are you kind of keeping your eye on when you're monitoring?
Well, it depends. What I've noticed is the most important variable is the content being talked about. So there's a lot of popular buzzwords.
You mean elsewhere on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the content that's most likely to be doing well right now is a lot to do with like tech and like AI discussion. That's what I've noticed. I've noticed when I'm posting and creating more emotionally charged shorts, they're not doing too well, even though I'm cutting them the same way. I'm playing with the captions and descriptions the same way. It just seems that the algorithm prefers different content over,
where do you go to know what people are talking about? Is there I know Google has their own zeitgeist overall about search. Are there tools on YouTube where you can go see what's trending? I know there are on TikTok too, where you can see what's trending and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you go on your studio analytics page, it should have a little thing for like, this content's trending, or you can ask there in Studio AI questions about, hey, what content is good right now? What content is like blowing up? And what I tend to do most often is take the analytics from each video. So we're talking about watch time, views, time of posting, and also date of posting. That's also an important thing. I've noticed that closer to holidays, viewership drops off, and closer to, bigger sort of events that might be going on, viewership will dip. But it really is just like kind of like a mad scientist sort of experimentation with the content, where it's constantly changing. The algorithm is constantly changing, and they're not going to give you a set blueprint on how to maximize potential in the algorithm, or else we'd all be, famous YouTube creators. So it really is just keeping track of your metrics and really finding creative ways to improve your content that will in turn get pushed more algorithmically.
So we've decided to like focus on YouTube first and kind of try to get a handle on that. But theoretically, couldn't we, all these YouTube shorts you're making, what do you feel like you'd have to do to make them go on TikTok or Instagram Reels, or in fact, Facebook has Reels now too, right? Like, do you feel like that you could plop them the same ones? Like Alyssa's talking about repurpose your content. What was it you said, Jory? Chopping the chicken, right? Do you think you could just share those same shorts in those other platforms and the performance would be similar? Or do you feel like in each case, these different platforms are designing so that you'd have to tweak them?
I think each platform is designing that you definitely have to tweak your content. And I definitely can just right now, most of the shorts I've created, they are ready to go on different platforms. I personally wanted to get a mastery of YouTube first, because it just seems like not to say the easiest route, but it has the most control right now. Yeah. And so I'm using YouTube as like kind of like the control variable, where it's like posting on one platform, posting all this content. This is controlled. I know what's going on and how to fix things if they're not working. Right. It is my goal to start adding in these other platforms such as Instagram Reels, TikTok, Facebook, and really all the videos I've created so far, you could easily drop them into every single one of those platforms. But we would start to have to create another sort of experiment with
Right,
captions.
another workflow, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is interesting because you can have the content all done. You can have the content meticulously just ready to go pretty much. But again, it's all algorithmic based in social media nowadays. And sad to say, with like, say, most like games on your phone or something like that, if you're not paying, you're not going to have the most fun playing. So,
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. We're going to take a trip over to Jory now to talk about LinkedIn. Alyssa, you're not active on LinkedIn, are you? I had trouble finding you on LinkedIn, in fact.
I'm not on LinkedIn. Another platform that has, especially as I start my speaking career, everyone's like, you got to get on LinkedIn. And I'm like, man, just like a whole nother platform.
Yeah.
And it's just, prioritizing your piece a little bit.
Well,
But
Yeah,
I'm
you may or may
excited to
not
learn
need to
more.
be.
well, maybe
Yeah,
Jory will
Yeah,
give you
inspire
some
me.
you may or may
tips.
not need to be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have pretty much put all my eggs in the LinkedIn basket, and some of it is strategic, and it's also just because that's where I like to be. I mean, I just enjoy the content, and I've been locked out of my Facebook, so that's another reason why I
Well,
got
I was
hacked.
going to ask you, Jory, before
But
we
other
ever
than that,
start, before we ever started optionality,
yeah,
you clearly were focused on LinkedIn, which
yeah,
and you just said something so key. I think you said that's where that's where I enjoy. That's what
yeah,
I enjoy. That's where I like to be. I've never really I never touched I joined LinkedIn when it came out and then never touched it again until we sold BlogHer. And I
yep.
needed to all of a sudden, I mean, no one had to wonder where to find me. Right. So I'm over here on BlogHer, it's obvious. And so I don't love being on LinkedIn. And so I was going to ask you, before we ever started optionality, you had 40,000 followers then. You have 60 something followers now. Was that a strategy, or was that just you like being there, you're spending time there, you're doing stuff there, and it was organic?
It was a series of unintentional and intentional things.
Okay.
So I would say early days, it was right place, right time. Very early user, and was developing content when content was just starting to emerge on the platform,
Yeah.
and had a relationship with LinkedIn. I mean, they were asking me to write something. And so when I started that, when you have those relationships like you did, remember with Google Plus, and all of a sudden Elisa's got 2 million followers. I'm like, how that happened?
Yes, it's true.
I had a relationship with them. But the challenge was I didn't really value all of that. I sort of was like, yeah, okay, you want me to write something? I'll write something. I've got BlogHer. And then when we exited and I was figuring out what I wanted to do, I used it as a thought leadership platform. I was working through things that interested me and would write thought leadership pieces, and some of them went viral. I remember getting one of my pieces, which at the time seemed like a lot, got 50,000 some odd followers. Now, for some posts,
Still seems
that's
like a lot to me, but
yeah. I'm sorry, not followers. Just readers of a
yeah.
post, though, so of an article. And I was like, what happened? So some of that, I realized it was right place, right time. I wrote about something that was very interesting. I've always liked to be on the vanguard of new tech and figuring out stuff. So a lot of, I started to get some people reading me for that. One thing that I noticed is then I would go get busy on something, and then I come back and I'm like, oh, I'm 3,000 followers less than I was. And I mean, literally thousands of followers just dropping off. And I realized LinkedIn is very picky. You need to keep feeding the beast. And I made a very conscious decision that my goal with LinkedIn is not just to obtain followers, it's to obtain the right followers, and to obtain it because there is interest in me, my content, or something that I have, shared. Otherwise, I don't want to do it just to do it. And I think that's an important distinction to make with all of the platforms, right? What are you
Yeah.
getting out of it? And I'll use an example of something, a big lesson I learned. I was working with a client who had, every time we did an engagement, there'd be hundreds, if not thousands of leads. that were generated from this. And over the course of maybe a year of working with this client, we realized that hardly any of them were converting into customers. And here for years, they were using this strategy because they kept seeing the leads, but they got to a point where they really needed to focus and understand, is this ultimately the best way for us to be spending our marketing dollars? And similarly, with LinkedIn, you can have the most viral content ever, or notice that your content isn't going viral. But if you're meeting the right people and getting the right opportunities out of it, and people are reaching out to you with opportunities, it shouldn't really matter if your content is viral or not. It's really, what is it that you want to accomplish? And that's been more of my focus for the last 3 to 5 years. And yes, the growth was slower, and it's been more deliberate though.
Well, that's so interesting. I also think there's this concept of who do you want to be talking to? Like, I've been enjoying being over on Threads, and it's really weird. I very regularly post things that get thousands and thousands of views. The follower count barely moves though. So it's clearly not part of the culture over there. The For You page, actually, like on TikTok, the For You feed is pretty good over on Threads. So I think people just feel like, I don't need to follow that person. I'm getting fed what I like. That's how I feel on TikTok. I get fed what I like, and but I realized that what I want out of it, I want to replicate the early Twitter experience of being at a funny, chaotic cocktail party of bunch of weirdos to meet. That's what I get over on Threads. And I don't care if they're following me or not. I just like all the individual conversations. But on LinkedIn, I feel like I get, I don't know, I guess because it's purported to be a professional, this is where you're building your professional network. I feel so much more anxiety about, like, what am I doing and what am I not doing? And especially for optionality, to just, like you said earlier, they don't want you to link off the platform. And I'm like, but I don't work. If this is a professional platform where we're all supposed to be sharing our work and our profession, we don't work for LinkedIn. So of course we want people to go elsewhere. So have you figured out any magic to, like,
Just a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, so recently when we had a live event, we always have interest in our live events, but it was relatively small for a live event for us. And there were a bunch of other AI events happening, right? So I think Ryan's earlier point about what is it about and does it tie into some of these trends that are getting found is important if that really matters to you. I have found that some of my least generating posts have gone into the right hands, and I'm okay with that, right? I did a seminar recently with someone that is part of our community, Betsy Tong, who is a LinkedIn rock star of late. She decided, I'm going all in on LinkedIn, and she's also an AI consultant, and her numbers skyrocketed. So, I mean, it's not atypical for one of her posts to get 500,000 views, right? And so we were talking to a group about LinkedIn specifically, and I was sort of the one that was more, hey, is it working for you? Let's not talk about how viral it is. But Betsy was all about, here's what needs to happen if you want to go virally. And this is her business. So for her, she's very invested in that. But we both had a very similar reaction to one of the people in the seminar who asked us to take a look at her LinkedIn profile and said, hey, here it is. What's wrong with it? And in her case, she was going for a new role. She just had a very big appointment and a very big, like, feather in her cap. And she had sent it out, and she noticed that there wasn't a lot of engagement on it. And of course, Betsy was trying to help her with, well, here's what you can put in as repost it with this as the first line, because that's what's always the hook. And I'm like, or leave it and just make it a featured post on your profile. So when someone's doing a search, you've checked the box and it's there, and they can see right there that you had this feather in your cap. Not everything is meant to go viral, right? If this is what you're trying to do, the person who you're trying to reach, the hiring manager, is not trolling for content on LinkedIn. They're looking for candidates that match a certain. So it doesn't matter how many people have seen this announcement, just that it's there and it's
That
prominent when they do find you.
It takes a lot of discipline to not get pulled into
Yeah.
but if I think about like what all of you shared, I mean, that is actually a common theme I'm hearing. The first theme, where do you want to be? What do you find enjoyable? You each mentioned what you were getting out of it, that you like being on LinkedIn, that you like the puzzle of figuring out the YouTube and like, and that you were writing about something that you cared about. On Threads, everything I write is, it can be cats, it can be politics, it can be sci-fi, like it's what I like. Because to build, I mean, what that leads to is the second component, which is to build, you have to build some sort of sense of sticking to it and consistency. And you're not going to do that for something that you don't actually enjoy. And the third thing that I feel is kind of a consistent thing is that you can try to align your content. Yes, you can try to care about the algorithm. You can try to care about what's trending. You can try to use best practices. But at the end of the day, there is a certain sense of there's more than one way to measure success. And there's more than that. The idea of you're going to go viral on any social platform and it's going to fix your reach problems and you're going to suddenly be beating offers off with a stick is not realistic for like 99.9% of people. And instead, you're just trying to like build something that you can scale, that you can enjoy doing, and that it's for someone, I guess. Because, you're each kind of talking about who's not just how big is the audience, but who are the right audience members for what you're doing. What did I miss? I feel like those were some really common. It was kind of remarkable to me because I think of Substack, YouTube, and LinkedIn as quite different platforms. But I really heard all of this very similar feedback coming back. I'm wondering if I missed anything.
I will emphasize one point that you and I talk about all the time as it relates to optionality, right? For us, we really wanted to find our people. And there is a great essay that was by Paul Graham of Y Combinator. And basically, it made a very good, it was a good rationale for focusing on your true fans versus sheer virality, because these fans, if you will be more engaged. If you have a business, they're more likely to subscribe and pay for the service. And really focusing on where they are, what they are needing is more important than just being everywhere to everyone.
I'll put the link in the show notes, but Jory shared this with me very early on when we were figuring out what we wanted to do to create optionality. It's called 1,000 True Fans. Because I said to her, when we had been talking about the optionality concept for a very long time, she's like, I think we should build something around this. And I said, okay, and we co-founded a company together before, and we raised venture capital and we sold the company, and 80% of our revenue was from advertising online. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, but what if I don't want to raise venture capital? And what if I don't want to sell advertising again? Mm-hmm. I've done that and I don't want to do it again. And then she shared that 1,000 True Fans. And it does kind of guide how I think about this, which is find the right people, because then they're along for that journey with you. And Alyssa, I feel like you are living that. You've got, in fact, more than 1,000 True Fans, but you are living that right now. Like you have your 1,000 plus True Fans, and they will go on any journey with you, won't they? Most of them?
I like to think so. I think that I love that you guys are mentioning this, because I think virality is something that can be so intoxicating and you can get stuck on it. And as someone who has more posts that have reached over millions of views, like dozens and dozens of times, I can promise you that it doesn't give you what you think it does, right? Like I think we have this idea that it's going to provide us with something, whatever that something is, income, new leads, clients, and it doesn't a lot of times, or it's going to fill some void and it doesn't. And I feel like recently I have also made this shift of, I've been so fixated on inviting people to the party, like with content, like come to the party, come to the party, come to the party, party is Substack party at my house, but I'm forgetting that there's thousands of people at the party at my house, but I'm still out giving invitations, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like I'm in this pivot as well of like, you know what? Everyone who's supposed to be at the party is here. Can I just enjoy the party with everyone who's at the party already? And so, I mean, this month I went on live on Substack, which I love that feature. And I was begging for it. I was like, if Substack just had a live version, it would be perfect. And it came along and I've hardly ever used it. And so
I
now
turned off my mic, but Alyssa, I was just saying, Ryan, that was the money quote for this.
Yeah.
What she just said about wanting to enjoy her party. Okay. Just so you know.
It's so
I
true.
will be
That was it.
purchasing that
Well,
later.
You remind me of two things, Ryan. Remember when because we find that even on the posts that get a lot of views on YouTube, we're not getting a lot of comments or engagement. And then there was a post that got comments, and then all the comments were like bot / troll. And we're like, why did we want comments?
I noticed that on YouTube too. YouTube has so many bots.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
I don't experience that on TikTok. I mean, TikTok, there's, those scammers, but Instagram, I hardly ever experience it. But YouTube, holy moly, that's all my comments were.
Yeah. So.
And I'll say the type of bots that you'll get on YouTube. It's really funny that our most commented short was on someone talking about the little bit of an education crisis when it comes to people doing masters and PhDs. And then I post that, it gets a bunch of traction. I'm just looking at the comments, they're like, good. Like, what do you mean good? That's not
they
good.
were anti-education, but they were bots. They were clearly bot people, saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It's funny though. I will say that I will tell this little anecdote. So I have for years and years and years, I don't even know how many years, I started doing it on Twitter. So obviously it was I quit Twitter years ago now. I post a little daily accountability post. I have a hashtag, not habits, not resolutions, just habits. And I have a habit tracker app. And every day I post how I did on my habits. And it started before the pandemic even. So it's at least 6-7 years old. I have been posting this every day for years for myself. It's like a little accountability. Yes, I took my vitamins. Yes, I drank my water. Yes, all these things. And then I'll put commentary on what else, a little bit. It's like a little daily report. No one ever reads these things. No one ever likes them. No one ever comments them. I move them over to Threads. Still the same. I don't know what happened. In the last few weeks, all of a sudden, these posts are getting tens of thousands of views on Threads, sometimes hundreds of thousands. Still, nobody really likes them. I'll get like 3 likes. Still, the only comments are like super unintelligible, spam comments. And then so I posted, this is so weird that I'm getting all these views. And what happened then is about 3 or 4 or 5 people I actually know and engage with regularly on the platform said, oh, I love those posts. They really encourage me, or they give me ideas or whatever. And I'm like, oh, those like little 3 people. I was like, oh, that made like all these years I've been doing that. It wasn't just for me. It was for these 3 people. And I loved that, and so it's so funny. I mean, it's just, Ryan had it right early on when he said, it's not just Gen Z whose brains are getting broken. Ours have gotten broken in various ways as well. So I just want to thank you all, because I feel like we had this great balance of talking about the kind of philosophy of what you want, how to get what you want, but also some brass tacks about how you're doing it. So we're going to put this will go out to our membership. We're going to put in the show notes how to find each of you. But if you could tell people to look for you in one place, where should they look for you, Alyssa?
Oh, I want to say Instagram, but I should say Substack, right?
Good. I think you should.
Substack. My Substack is Codependency Alchemy. And yeah, we'd love to have you over there in the community.
And if you were intrigued by Alyssa's advice here, you are doing a mastermind focused on building your Substack. It starts when?
Yeah, I am. It starts December 8th, but I am doing actually a webinar, which is going to be the talk that you saw at Alt Summit
Oh,
next Monday on December 1st. So, and it's free. So if anyone's like, hey, I want to hear just more about Substack and even feel into if it's the right platform for me, I'm doing a free webinar next Monday, December 1st.
okay. We'll put that link too. And you all
Mhm.
should attend that because that's what I attended and I thought it was amazing. Ryan, where should people find you?
You guys can find me on my LinkedIn at Ryan Tate, or if you so happen want to see into my personal life, it's Ryan C. Tate. Yes, I got my full name on Instagram, Instagram handle. So
Okay.
winning over here. But yeah, usually I'm more active on LinkedIn when it comes to professional matters, and that should be the place to find me at.
Okay, great. And Jory, well,
You
how would
know
you
what
like
I'm going to
say?
say. Optionality.life.
That's
But
right.
you're welcome to
Find
look me up
us.
on LinkedIn. I was talking about LinkedIn, but I
Oh,
talk about optionality.life on my LinkedIn. So
she is a top voice on LinkedIn. So, but yes,
yes.
optionality.life. We're wrapping up our month of wisdom exchange. And we hope that in this whole month of us talking to so many wise people about so many different aspects of managing your portfolio life and your optionality driven life, we hope we were able to share some really practical, actionable advice with you. Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Jory. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.